Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Shri Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaura Permanente, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 17, The Descendant of the River Ganges. Text 12. Okay, we're just going to do the word for word. Unless does anyone know what meter we can use for this? Read it like a text. Okay. All right, repeat after me. Esu, in these 8 Vashas or tracts of land. Purushanam, of all the men. Ayuta, 10,000. Purusha, by the measure of men. Ayuvarsanam, of those whose years of life. Devakalpanam, who are like the demigods. Vajrasamhanana, by bodies as solid as thunderbolts. Bala, by bodily strength. Vayaha, by youth. Moda, by abundant sense enjoyment. Pramudita, being excited. Mahasaurata, a great deal of sexual. Sorry? Yeah. Mithuna, combinations of man and woman. Vyavaya apavarga, at the end of their period of sexual enjoyment. Varsha, in the last year. Rita eka garbaha, who conceive one child. Kalatranam, of those who have wives. Tatra, there. 2, but. Treta Yuga Samaha, exactly like the Treta Yuga, when there is no tribulation. Kalaha, time. Vartate, exists. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In these 8 vashas or tracts of land, human beings live 10,000 years according to earthly calculations. All the inhabitants are almost like demigods. They have the bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. Indeed, their bodies are as sturdy as thunderbolts. The youthful duration of their lives is very pleasing, and both man and woman enjoy sexual union with great pleasure for a long time. After years of sensual pleasure, when a balance of 1 year of life remains, the wife conceives a child. Thus, the standard of pleasure for the residents of these heavenly regions is exactly like that of the human beings who lived during Treta Yuga. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. During the first yuga, Satya Yuga, people were very pious, Everyone practiced the mystic yoga system for spiritual understanding and realization of God. Because everyone was always absorbed in samadhi, no one was interested in material sense enjoyment. During Treta Yuga, people enjoyed sense pleasure without tribulations. Material miseries began in Dwapara Yuga, but they were not very stringent. Stringent material desires really began from the advent of Kali Yuga. Another point in this verse is that in all 8 of these heavenly vashas, although men and women enjoy sex pleasure, there's no pregnancy. Pregnancy takes place only in lower grade life. For example, animals like dogs and hogs become pregnant twice a year, and each time they beget at least half a dozen offspring. Even lower species of life, such as snakes, give birth to hundreds of young at one time. This verse informs us that in grades of life higher than ours, pregnancy occurs once in a lifetime. People still have sex life, but there's no pregnancy. In the spiritual world, people are not very attracted to sex life due to their exalted devotional attitude. Practically speaking, there is no sex life in the spiritual world, but even if sometimes it does occur, there's no pregnancy at all. On the planet Earth, however, human beings do become pregnant, although the tendency is to avoid having children. In the sinful age of Kali, people have even taken to the process of killing the child in the womb. This is the most degraded practice. It can only perpetuate the miserable material conditions of those who perform it. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swarupa Kadamayam Tadajsa Parantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so I clearly prepared for a different verse, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So here we're actually hearing about the fruit, pretty much the field of our fruit of activities, the place that we're situated. In previous verses, we heard of the 3 divisions of heavenly planets. Right? We know that there is, where we're at, the Bhoma Swarga, where there is a considerable amount of enjoyment, and below us, of course, the lower planetary regions, which is called Bila Swarga, where there is also enjoyment. And the most enjoyment, of course, if we were to compare in the celestial planets, Divya Swarga, where the enjoyment is really magnified. It's kind of like high definition enjoyment, right? As it's explained in this verse, the strength of men is like how many thousands of 10,000 elephants. I cannot understand how someone can be so strong. But it is factual because it is given in the pages of the Bhagavatam that men were so strong that their appearance, their strength, their virtuous qualities were much more pronounced, as if it was the golden age. Whereas the enjoyment that we experience on this earthly planet, it is there to some degree, but it is very stringent, actually, for Kali Yuga. You can only enjoy for so much. We barely make it to 100, barely, without having one of our faculties fail on us, be it a kidney, an eye, our teeth. Something is always breaking somewhere. Right? So we have this material body, and it is not perfect. Even in the upper planetary systems, let's not be fooled and think, I can live for 100,000 years with the strength of 10,000 elephants, and I can enjoy sensually and only get pregnant once. Right? The year before we actually exit from that higher realm, that's what happens. An offspring is produced, and based on our karma, we're either elevated or we come down to the earthly planets to perform karma once again. That's what happens. So it may seem like a great option. Live for a long time, have physical strength, mental fortitude. You're living in pretty much a celestial place with beautiful, everything is stimulating to the senses, everything is beautiful. But it is all limited because it's still within the scope of the material universe. Everything has a beginning, middle, and end. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna speaks to Arjuna, confidential knowledge, in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains a similar point, that whether you are in the lowest region or you're in the highest region, whether you're in the planet of Lord Brahma, still there is misery, still there is repeated birth and death, right? Even though you're in an elevated place, you have an elevated type of gross and subtle body, still there is some type of misery. So the verse is Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Puna Avarjuna Arjuna Mam Upechato Kuntiya Punajmanana Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So this is the mentality of the devotee, that we understand this material world for what it is. We're not trying to get entangled. We're trying to actually get liberated from it all. So it means that we recognize, yes, there is enjoyment to be had, whether it's for 100 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, it will happen, but it is limited. It is only for the expansion of our material desires, and because they can never be satisfied, just like, a fire, the more ghee you pour on fire, that fire keeps burning. Material desires can never be satisfied. Still, we have to come back, take a body again to try to fulfill these strong desires. So there's warning everywhere on how to deal with that, whether it is the celestial planets here, or the lower planetary systems, or the upper planetary systems. Still, these are places of misery where repeated birth and death takes place. Another point that was mentioned in this verse. All the inhabitants are almost like demigods. They have the bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. Indeed, their body are as sturdy as thunderbolts. The youthful duration of the life is very pleasing. This is the one thing that in the material world we try to hang on to, right? We're trying to hang on to our youth by whatever means necessary. Broadly speaking, not everyone. But we can tell there is a great effort, there are great strides that are being made to try to preserve our youth, whether it's in skincare, right? Whether it is in cosmetic surgery, whether it's within all sorts of nips and tucks. The reason why we do these things is because we have identified heavily with the body, especially when the body is youthful and able to enjoy exuberantly. Right? When our bodies are willing and able, that's when we hone in on the enjoyment, right? You can party like anything, you can drink like a tank, you don't sleep much, you're just raving it up. Been there, done that. I can attest to it. That's what happens. You're young, you don't have to sleep much, you don't feel like eating much, you go for hours on end just trying to enjoy. And you reach a point, fortunately for me, where you just think, what the heck is the point of it all? What's the point? I'm tired, I'm hungry, I have a headache, I lost the wallet, lost an ID, I'm developing not so good qualities. Right, so all these things we go through, and hopefully some point we wake up and we realize that this so-called enjoyment that we're chasing after in our youth is really not worth it. The material pleasures that we chase in our youth lead us to some form of degradation if we're really honest about it. Now, it's difficult when we're in that age because we're driven by so many things. Hormones being number one, right? The body and its urges, right? Peer pressure, the environment around us, the music we listen to, the visual stimulation that we see, whether you're driving in the car, you're at the shopping mall, it's all in your face. Right, so we have all these things impressed on us. And sometimes during our youth, it's very difficult to push back. We're easily swayed because everybody's doing it. Right? We've all been 16, well, actually, except 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Most of us have kept 16. We know what peer pressure is like. We know what the body does to us when we're in our youth. The hormones, the attraction between male and female, how studies have been done, actually, which is quite funny. The behavior of male and female once they get put together at a certain age. It's really funny, right? The ladies start behaving a certain way. The men all of a sudden want to develop a deep voice, have a broad chest, and be very funny. You know, they want to have a little bit of chivalry and impress the opposite sex or the same sex, you know, whatever. Right, so all this is going on because there's all sorts of stimulations happening that they're not even aware of. There is a wonderful documentary as well, which is in the animal kingdom. I can't remember, what's it called? Have you watched it? It was shown at one retreat. I can't remember what it's called. Not human IQ. Love in the Animal Kingdom, something like that. Love in the Animal Kingdom, the beginning of this documentary. Beautiful. It's a polar bear. And male, female polar bear. The female, of course, is acting like it's not interested. It's snowing, of course, taking its stride. And the male is trying to impress, run down, and the female is looking disinterested, being coy. So many different instances how the male species behaves in the presence of the female. Even in the animal kingdom, it is there. Even in the animal kingdom, it is there. So this lusty propensity, this sex desire as well, it is a driving force for a lot of activities in this world. It is that which drives a man as if, you know, their intelligence has been taken away. It's insatiable. Right? Krishna explains the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world, lust. And that lust doesn't only mean sex desire, but it means just trying to enjoy the body with any of our senses. So that happens in the lower planetary systems, it happens in the subterranean planets, it's happening in the higher planets of the demigods. And Krishna still says all are but places of misery because it is not forever. You have to come down. If by some mercy you come across a pure devotee, you may become elevated based on association. So living 10,000 years seems like a good idea. You know, you can really push a few projects, work on yourself, you know, just redefine who you are. You got 10,000 years. But the tricky thing about being in the material world, there's so many other hidden agendas, little loopholes, little curveballs that you don't see. It's like you're running a race. Have you ever seen the horses, what do they call them at Flemington when they have, what was that? Melbourne Cup, yeah. When the horses come out of the gates, I do this quite often, I think of that painting of the chariot, the charioteer, the 5 horses, the 5 senses, right? And they're off the gates, and lust is leading the way. And behind lust, you have envy and pride and ignorance, and they are neck and neck. And here comes that sex desire going up. So I kind of think of it as you're in a race, and in the mature world, when you least expect it, here comes that damn lust, and there comes envy, and here comes that sex desire. And when you don't see it, ignorance is creeping up on you. Right? We don't see, all we see is like our 10,000 years, strong as 10,000, 100,000 elephants, enjoy sex life and enjoy the body. But all these other things are right on your neck as well. This is the trick of being in the material world. You don't see it coming, but it is there. It is the nature of this material world. So although there is great material pleasure to be had, this is not what the devotee aspires for. We don't want to get caught up in this cycle of repeated birth and death. Again, come and become, get put in the womb, whether it's in a dog or lioness or human womb. It's still, you're in that womb covered by ignorance, and you're going to be forced out by all this prana and air, shoved out through a birth canal. Forget all about it. Be freaked out by all these flashing lights and all these sounds, and learn how to communicate, and the whole thing begins again. And we're caught in a network of bodily identification. So this process of transmigrating from lower to upper to middle, this has been going on perpetually. Even Lord Chaitanya, when he was instructing the Goswamis, Srila Rupa Goswami, we know the famous verse, Brahmanda Brahmita Kona Bhagyavan Jiv, Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhaktilata Bij. But according to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of million living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with the bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So when we're very fortunate, although we're traveling all over the universe, we come into contact with a bona fide spiritual master. And from the previous verse, Prabhupada boldly states the fact that one has to approach a bona fide guru. Those who are sincerely seeking the favor of Krishna come into contact with a guru, a bona fide representative of Krishna. Prabhupada rules out for our progress Mayavadis indulging in mental speculation and karmis desiring the results of their actions. Prabhupada says they cannot become gurus. Right? How can someone who is still enclenched in material fruit of activity give you the knowledge to come out when they are still tied themselves, when they are still bound? How can you free someone when you are still bound? And the Mayavadis, of course, they deny Krishna. They deny Krishna's existence. They think that when he comes into this material world, he takes on a material form. And the goal is for them to merge into that Brahman effulgence, which doesn't really corroborate with the Bhakti philosophy. So Prabhupada mentions that they really cannot become guru. Prabhupada goes on to further say that even if you have a Brahmana who has all the 6 qualities, if he's not a Vaishnav, he's not a true Brahmana. But even a Vaishnav who is born from a family of dog eaters, he can become guru. So the principle is we develop these qualities in relation to serving Krishna, not independent to Krishna. Krishna is there in every single equation. He cannot be omitted even from this material world. Even his Maya Shakti, that is Krishna's inferior energy. We cannot take Krishna out of that equation. We cannot say it is just chance this energy is there. No, it has been created by Krishna for a particular reason. The cosmos has been created for a reason. All the elements have been created with a particular function. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't a haphazard affair. So Prabhupada is making that point that yes, we should approach those bona fide representatives because they will provide information about Krishna and how to attain Krishna. So even when we are in this material world, we're on this earth planet, we have a short lifespan, but we have been blessed with the books that we have with Srila Prabhupada's presence, his purports, and our spiritual masters who can guide us on the principles of devotional service. So although we're living in Kali Yuga, it may not necessarily, when we're in this room, it doesn't feel like Kali Yuga. It will be as if we're in Satya or Treta Yuga, because we're constantly hearing the glories of Krishna. We're constantly surrounding ourselves with devotees of Krishna. Tusyanticha Ramanticha. What is that verse? Machit Matgat Prana. Machit Matgat Prana. Bodhayat. Katyantastamam Nityam Tusyanticha Ramanticha. That the thoughts of my devotees dwell with me. That the devotees derive great bliss and satisfaction by conversing with one another about Krishna. There's so many stories of so many devotees, even in places where they're not allowed to publicly glorify Krishna. They do it in private or in hiding or in cars. So this great benediction we have, the blessing we have from Srila Prabhupada is that we have access to these books. And because these books are here, we can directly associate with a bona fide representative of Krishna, who is coming to give Krishna as he is. So there's a lot of focus on this verse on sensual pleasure, right? We know that in the times that we're living in, there's a specific mention in the purport that there are so many degraded practices. And out of all these degraded practices, the most, I don't know if I could say is the most degraded one, but it is to terminate a life within the womb. Right? That is happening a lot. So that people may continue their sense enjoyment. And although this is sometimes spoken of as women's liberation or independence, if we look at it deeply, this is harming a living entity who could have possibly come into this earth planet to perform their karma, do what they have to do to try and start their journey. In the same way that a child who has been born and killed after 1 month, if you do that, you'd be sent to prison. Yet when they're still in the womb, they are being killed. And it is okay. And so much violence. And when there's such violence, people generally tend to become desensitized to it. Oh yeah, it's a free, if you have healthcare, whatever, you can go, someone can take care of it for you. Your life will be back to normal, you can go about your way. But this is actually very harmful even to the psyche or the consciousness of the person performing that, what to speak of that little entity. So in the name of enjoyment and trying to seek out pleasure in the material world, we perform all these abominable acts, thinking that we're going to prolong our sense of enjoyment. But the sense of enjoyment that we think we have is easily captured by time. Before you know it, you won't have the ability to taste your food properly. You won't be able to digest food, so you'll have to live off a simple diet. Your kidney will fail. You won't be able to enjoy sex life as much. Old age will come and capture you so quickly. Disease will just be riddled inside your body. So instead of trying to find loopholes and ways and ins and outs to try to beat the system, you cannot beat the material energy. You can only do so by practicing pure devotional service. Then you can escape from the clutches, the stringent laws of material nature. But without Krishna, you are fighting a battle that you cannot win. You cannot capture time. You cannot defeat the modes. You cannot defeat this body. Only if you have sound, authorized knowledge from a bona fide representative of Krishna. Even if he was be born in a family of dog eaters, as Prabhupada says in the previous purport. Even if he comes from a lowly family, but they have taken to Krishna consciousness. They have taken to the process of pure devotional service. So let's not be fooled by the glittery glamour of material sense enjoyment. It doesn't lead to anyone's real happiness. It really doesn't. It's deceitful. It makes it look like things are going to go one way, but actually going to go the other way. So that is what we may take away from today, that we try to take shelter of the bona fide Guru, as instructed by Krishna, as instructed by Lord Chaitanya, as instructed by Srila Prabhupada in his purport, that the Guru is one who can give knowledge of the self, knowledge of Krishna, and our relationship to him. And by the process of devotional service, we can come out of this Brahmanda, we can come out of this repeated cycle of repeated birth and death, when we go up into the planetary systems, or we go down into the lower systems and try to enjoy. So I'll leave it there, and I'll ask if there's any comments or questions. Yep. What the? Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to read the full details, but all I know is that the year before they have to drop down into the earthly realms to perform their karma, these children are born. But at the same time, I can't remember which Sandarbha I was reading it in, that when the demigods are born, they're not born like babies. They're grown. So it's not like you have an infant, their mom and dad just went bloop. What kind of neglect is this? But they're actually elevated souls, and they actually come grown. Yes, Priya.
So there's no sinful reaction for engaging in this way?
There's no what?
Sinful reaction?
For what?
For enjoying with the other in this way, in the way they do.
Because there's no sinful reaction for enjoying in this way?
Yeah, for men and women to enjoy together in the upper planetary systems.
In the upper planetary systems? Well, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they're there because of their punya, their pious credit. So once it runs out, they come down and then start working, hopefully creating good karma, but in the material realm there's good and bad. So up there, they're actually just living out their good pious credits. So in one sense, I don't know, maybe Gopa, you can clarify. In one sense, they're not really getting sinful reaction because they're just enjoying the credits of their past good deeds. And once that runs out, that's why they leave. Their garland shrivels up, another demigod comes to replace, and again, birth in the material world. But here...
Yeah, it's like all the rules are for us in this plane.
Oh, we could see it like that, but at the same time, suffering is suffering. Right, they too have to take a body. We too have to take a body. Whether or not you enjoy in the spiritual, in the Swargaloka, or you enjoy here, you're still within the material domain. So you may be handcuffed in gold, in brass, in silver, you're still handcuffed. You're still in handcuffs, you're still chained. Gold might feel nicer, look better, aesthetically pleasing, but you're still handcuffed. Sylvia, you had a question?
Thank you for the nice class.
A resident sage in the making.
My question is that you were saying that Krishna fulfills our desires, but only if they're spiritual. But we see when we desire to come to the temple, we see that the temples are closed. So how do we understand this?
We understand because the law has told us, due to coronavirus, we cannot travel. Although we have this building here, which is our main temple to worship Shri Shivara Balba, Jagannath Balaram Subhadra, and Shri Gaur Nitai, our homes are also temples. So Kali Yuga, a lot of things happen that are not really in the books, because we're just special like that. So because of what's happening in the world with the coronavirus this time, who knows what will happen in the future, then we cannot come to the temple. Then we try to make our homes the best temples that we can. Right? There may be some people at home listening and watching. Right? So it's not so much of being in these four walls, but we always try to constantly hear and glorify Krishna. So you can do it in the temple, you can also do it at home if you can't come. If Krishna consciousness was just in this temple, then it would be very, very limiting. Right? So even at home, we have an altar, we offer food, we have deities. That is also a temple. The home should be seen as the temple of the Lord as well. So we're still desiring, but because of the law, things have been limited. Sure. Three minutes to 8:30, going once. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jani Tai Go, Premanande Hari Hari Bo.